Hi, everyone. Happy Monday, and welcome to Washington Live, powered by KCTC. I'm your host, Jaron Rosine. Our producer is Nick Steffens. Our publisher is Matt Bryant. We're part of the Southeast Iowa Union, and later today, our guest is Mike Zahs. As I go through the educator, historian, farmer, minister, and we have a bunch to talk about. What we are going to talk about, you'll just have to stick around and find out because it can go a lot of different ways. If you haven't done so yet, please like and follow and share this episode if you so wish. We want to grow together, and you can get notified when we go live. You can watch in its entirety. You can watch in segments. You can do whatever you'd like. If you have a birthday shout out today, please put that in the chat. Anniversary, local event shout outs, also good. You can also email washialive@gmail.com with that information. Before we do police report, some local event updates. The state fair is going on, so shout out to our previous guest, Kinley Holmes, was the runner-up in the contest for the Governor's Steer Show. You can see her here pictured with Jeff Angelo. There's also a very sweet picture of her with Governor Reynolds as, runner-up. It's hard. What a shout out to her and the hard work that everyone put into her steer, Rick, and the fundraiser for the McDonald House. We're going to put the county fair Facebook in the chat because there's other updates from Merrick Greiner, Caden Houston, who did a program there. I was following their Facebook, and we're being very well represented at the state fair in Washington County. You can click in the comments to that fair, the 4-H page, and see updates from the fair. We have one other update. We did a couple ribbon cuttings since our last show. I'd like to show the picture of the Encore Dining Services. This is at the Emmanuel Lutheran Church and is a program for senior dining. It's not Meals on Wheels. Those are two separate needs. And they were just about to open the senior dining program right before the pandemic hit. So a long time in the works at the Emmanuel Lutheran Church. I think it's the second and fourth Thursday for less than $5. If you're younger than the age of 60, it's a $9 suggested donation. And we had a wonderful meal and ribbon cutting for Encore Dining Services. Of course, ribbon cutting at the chair as well. I don't have a picture of that came in time, but congrats to all of those, milestones. Shall we do the police report? And then we'll, Nick cut weather today. I did not expect it, but as I look out the window, it's sunny. Later, it might be rainy. Many of you watched the show after the fact, so yeah. If you'd like to know the weather, you can just look outside or whatever you need to do. All right, busy times since we last, and I'll go through it quickly because we've got a lot to get into, but 86 calls for service. Oh wait, how was your weekend, Nick? How are you doing?
It was a pretty good weekend. Went up and saw my girlfriend Cedar Falls, went to a farmer's market, just kind of enjoyed the weekend.
Glad to hear it. Likewise for me, I reminisced with people that I used to work with 18 years ago, so.
I was 4. Well, I was 5. So I guess I'm 23 now.
Gosh.
I'm 23. I got to get used to saying that.
Great. Thank you for that. 86 calls for service since our last show. 17 were traffic related. 7 were animal related. There was a bunch of that. Trespass and assault, sex offender checks, singles, and all of the others that we run down in the list. I don't think anything out of the usual list. Loitering, that's pretty typical. 1 missing person, 1 found person, which is good. Highlights. We had report of an unoccupied disabled vehicle, red minivan, kind of strange. Report of a female walking down the middle of the road, has shorter dark hair. I'm trying to read too fast. Wearing shorts, unable to locate, found her again, encouraged to stay on the sidewalk. East Washington can be a bad spot. There used to not be a sidewalk there. And if you don't know where East Washington is, this would be like the highway or the sidewalk to Asenmore to Pizza Ranch to Walmart. Yeah. And there was a stretch, no sidewalk, so you would have people in their strollers, you'd have people in their little scooters, like on the highway.
Not ideal city planning.
Because you got to get to that spot. So this sidewalk is new within the last few years, and it's good to use it. Friday morning, right after our show, we did have a vehicle run into a building. This was breaking news at Cafe Dodici, the Dodici shop. We had just done music that night with several of the family members there. So it was kind of a surreal thing to get back to normal life on Friday. Everyone was okay, thankfully, but the building front, the door, the windows, the car.
Yeah. I was on my way to Casey's just to grab like a quick bite to eat after the show, and
saw.
Yeah. It was, like I said, a surreal kind of thing.
It's on the social media. It's on the, I'm sure I saw Caitlin there taking a photo, so you will see that. Caitlin was the one that took the photo at the Encore Dining Service as well. So shout out to him for that photo. Let's keep on moving. We have a good mother reporting her son who assaulted a neighborhood kid, and the mom is in constant contact with her son. She will call if she needs further assistance. So it sounds like mom intervened on this assault. We also had a grandson that got a little wild as well with her husband and required assistance. We have abandoned bikes in the mix of the police report that were turned in. Those bikes, of course, go to an annual auction at ridiculous days. So when bikes get lost and found, they go to the bike auction. Ongoing issue with the neighbor's dog. Animal number 1 of 7. We have, I think, 3 other animals in here. Officer with an assistance with a place to stay. We had a disturbance in the park between a male and female with broken phones, no contact orders, assault, arrests, a whole bunch of stuff that went down with that incident. Deputy, let's see, someone unplugging a camera when they were taking their things back from their landlord and neighbor, and that was a concern, but police responded and helped with that. We found the stolen Prius. I don't think we mentioned the stolen car before, but it looks like there was a yellow open road driving Prius that was missing a few days ago, and it was found in Albia. It was taken from CJ Oil in Kelowna. I'm glad they found it.
I'm glad they found that.
Dumps couches in a ditch. Money and debit card taken from their room, but then they found it later. It had just been misplaced. We have a dog tied up and the chain is too tight. We have 2 individuals fighting again somewhere in Washington. We have a blue Dodge truck parked nearby. Located the truck, spoke with the juvenile driver who's advised of the complaint. The complaint was that they were yelling obscenities out the window at the residence. Oh, no. Nick, yes, what are you going to do? Caller reports his girlfriend will not stop fighting with him. 103, 108 responded. The parties separated for the evening. This is when we get from, as you know, this is a Monday show, so you have Saturday shenanigans, Sunday. By the time people spend too much time together, sometimes we have the fights. We have a report of vandalism at the Mid-American Energy Substation. Person with a backpack and a mask and a tattoo trying to break in on the motion detector camera. This was bad news, but everyone responded. There was an arrest that took place there. We have just a few more. Intoxicated female brought to the casino after almost being hit on Highway 22. Animal abuse by someone watching their cat. Intervened, cat is fine. Neighbor's dog up barking all night. Neighbor's dog has been back defecating in the yard. So these were the animal complaints I referred to. We have just 3 more before we go to break for the Washington Police Report. The weekend has 86 calls for service, so more to cover. Subject living in a shed on property who is not supposed to be there. Civil matter. Information forwarded to code enforcement. Here's like the 4th or 5th animal of the 7. We had the possum in the garage. Needs help removing it. Responded. The resident's dog had scared it away prior to officer arrival. 107 and 112 returned and retrieved the animal and released it in the county. And then I saw it on the side of the road, deceased on Highway 1. No, but could have been a different possum.
I love possum. Oh, my top 5 animal.
Really?
Probably.
Why is that?
I don't know. They're just
the tails.
North America's only marsupial.
Oh.
I feel like they're a top 5 animal.
As Mike doesn't know this, but Nick is real bad at math, but real smart in so many other areas. I did not know it was North America's only marsupial.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. No one fact checked me on that. Let me have this, Victor.
You can put in the comments, as well as birthday shout-outs.
All right.
We've got our audience today, and it's confirming. Finally, we have juveniles on the railroad tracks, left the area in a red truck, unable to locate that vehicle. They shouldn't be on the tracks. The sound quality of our next one, the stereo must be great. Caller reports a band playing loud music in the area. 103 responded, spoke with the homeowner. They will turn the music down. So their music system was so good that people thought it was a live band.
Wow.
Great. Finally, we had some subjects that were dressed in all black attempting to break into vehicles in Kelowna. 92.9 and 92.21 responded, unable to locate, but that means they were unsuccessful because we don't have any other reports there. Thank you for putting up with the long weekend police report. We have Almanac Best Day before we go to break and then join a conversation with Mike Zahs.
I forgot to pull up the Almanac Best Day when we were
Almanac
discussing.
Best Day.
We'll have that when we come back from break.
Oh, a little clunky. Washington Live, powered by KCTC. Hang around and join a conversation with Mike Zahs after the commercial.
At Ace, we're eager to assist you with all your shopping needs. Whether that be finally painting that room, getting ready for the next hunting season, or upgrading your bathroom. Whatever it may be, we'll make sure you get what you need.
Ace is the place with the helpful hardware, folks.
Federation Bank is a locally owned bank providing award-winning customer service. We believe that we are more than just a federation of banks, but a federation of communities, serving Brighton, Richland, Wellman, and Washington, Iowa. Federation Bank's highly skilled staff is here to make sure you are able to accomplish your personal and professional goals, whatever they may be. Federation Bank, your family bank.
Welcome back to Washington Live, powered by KCTC. I'm your host, Jaron Rosine. Our producer is Nick Steffens, and we're joined now in the studio by our guest today, Mike Zahs. Hi, Mike.
Good morning.
Happy to have you. Thank you for coming on the show.
Well, it's exciting to do this and to see how old students are maintaining themselves.
As mentioned, this is keeping me out of trouble. You have, as a former educator, my 7th grade Iowa history teacher, also historian, farmer, minister, so many hats.
Well, you should have a variety of things that you do. Otherwise, you get very dull.
I want to talk about some of those things today. Before we get into some of the projects that are current, I wanted to talk about the past, something that maybe I don't know about, or some I'm sure do, because of course they would. But what was your calling to at least education as my former teacher? How did you know that was your path? What pulled you there?
I started teaching in the 3rd grade. I went to a one-room country school, Round Grove School. I was the 4th generation of my family to go to that same school. And if I got my work done, then the teacher let me teach the little kids. And so I started teaching in 3rd grade and have been teaching ever since. And Round Grove School was the last one-room school in the county to close that did not have Amish students. So I was lucky to be able to go all the way through 8th grade in a one-room school.
Well, that is fortunate. I think my family history also has education in it with my grandfather and my grandmother and many years of teaching, but their path, did you have other family members that taught, brothers or sisters or your parents, or what was that?
I was the first in my family, immediate family, to graduate from college. And usually, if you are the first generation to go to college, you tend to go into teaching. And that's
it's just a natural.
Just what happens. And it was something I enjoyed doing, and I was interested in a lot of things. I got a degree in a couple of degrees in biology, and have spent most of my time in history.
My memories are fond, and they are many, from history to our bus tours to the Indian mounds. Before we get there, your wife is also an educator.
Correct.
How did you and your wife meet?
We met on the steps of what at that time was the library at the Washington High School, going to a class on human relations.
That's fitting. And
it was a required class for most people. I had got a permanent certificate very early in my career, so I didn't have to continue taking classes. But I thought it would be a class that would help. So we met on the steps there for a class of human relations. And
in human relations, you did learn, yeah.
Right. And I called and talked to the instructor much later when we decided to get married and invited him to our wedding, and he said, well, that's the most profound thing that has ever happened in one of my classes.
It's up there, and it might be a good transition. One of your big projects has been Saving Britain, and I remember that collection dates back to about the time you got married. What's the story, if our listeners don't know, about that collection?
Julie and I were married 41 years ago last week in a public elopement. And
happy anniversary.
And it's also was the 49th anniversary of my beard. But that same week, I met a man on the south side of the square who was cleaning out his father's house here in town. And he knew that I was kind of interested in the Brintons, and this man's father had been Mrs. Brinton's executor. And instead of getting rid of a lot of the things, he moved him to his basement. Everything that had to do with entertainment ended up in his basement in 1955. And the son was cleaning it out, and we made an agreement, and I got 3 pickup loads of stuff that same week. And not knowing
marriage, yes. Yeah. Wedding present.
Julie had a house that was big enough that we had a Brinton room, and we filled it up with stuff from that basement.
Well, and I enjoyed seeing what I believe is the Brinton room on the documentary Saving Britain, which I want to talk about a little bit, but I did do a little research beforehand. It is available for purchase at the Village. It is available for streaming or purchase on Amazon. And then Iowa Public Television also airs it, but it's edited on IPTV.
It's been on every public television station in the country, several thousand times, actually. But don't watch it on public television. I'm a fan of public television, but they cut out 30 minutes of it to make it fit their schedule. And that's hard for me to watch.
Yeah. Well, and what I think the relevance would be, I look at the date that it came out, which was 2018, 5 years ago. And you worked on it for how long?
I had a film crew that followed me around for 3 years.
So 8 years. So while this was 5 years old, 8 years old, it goes back to the 1800s. The relevance right now, 2022, it lives on in perpetuity because of what you're talking about.
The film crew, 3 men from Iowa City, became interested in the Brinton Film Collection. It is one of the most significant collections of early film in the world. About 140 or 50 films that date back to 1896. None of them are newer than 1908. And half of all films before 1950 are gone forever because the film deteriorated. So if you go back to 1900, just a very, very small percentage films survive.
Well, I'm glad that with the storage that you were able to preserve and show some things that had never been seen before, yet again, at the 25th Brinton Film Festival in Ainsworth. Nick, you have a folder. Would you show a couple of the photos? I want to talk about how you were able to play sound for the first time from these preserved materials. Yeah.
In the Brinton collection, the movies have gotten tremendous publicity around the world, and we've shown them around the world. But the sound recordings are ones that they're on wax cylinders, and as I didn't ever want to touch a needle to 120 or 30-year-old wax. And we have the machines that the Brintons use, but they're not in working condition. And so when I worked at the Library of Congress, I asked, how do I get the sound off of these cylinders?
And sorry that this is not my field or brilliance, but the wax cylinder, this is similar to like what a record is now, right? This would be pre-record.
There's grooves, and the sound variance is done by how depth
the groove is in the wax.
Yeah. Okay. But wax, I didn't know what wax does in 120 or 30 years. And I didn't know it when I got the collection. It was by a coal stoking furnace in a basement, so I didn't know.
That's a concern, yeah.
Right. And but the Library of Congress said that probably there's 23 recordings, and they said probably each of those is unique in the world. And it said they will be able in a few years to be able to get the sound off of those without touching them with a laser. And so I've been working the last 7 years to try to get that to happen. And we finally got the sound off of those cylinders on Thursday afternoon, I could listen to it for the first time before we started the film festival on the last Friday of July this year.
Well, that is very special. And you mentioned there's only a couple places in the country that can do this, and now I understand why. I didn't know the process, but the Library of Congress is one.
The Library of Congress we worked with for a long time, and they still apparently are not able to do it. But they recommended the University of Indiana, and I've been there to their lab, and they have an amazing lab that recovers early film and sound. And we were able to, there's years waiting list at the University of Indiana. We were able to contact a man in Burbank, California who did this work and got very excited about it.
Oh, I imagine,
and because it was stuff that was much older than he normally would work with. And he's maybe going to help us with some of the other recordings in the Brinton collection that are on metal.
Same principle with the metal, or?
No, I don't know for sure exactly how that will work, but with this, he took it off with laser, but they also said you could photograph that cylinder and with a laser take the sound off the photograph.
This is so, Nick, by the way, digital media production was
Yes.
You mentioned something about the 50s. Have you ever learned about any of what we're discussing, or the?
Yeah, so studying digital media production, and so I never worked with film, but I worked in the archives at the University of Northern Iowa, and we had, and I'm forgetting his name, Herb Hake.
Herb Hake.
He had his public television show. He had all these films, and the digitization process was a very long one. It's an expensive process. It's a lot, and I can't imagine with films that are 70 years older than that.
It seems like it takes a team, and you have done that well. You have great people.
Yes, and well, we donated the Brinton collection to the University of Iowa, to their special collections, and they have been marvelous. I can borrow back anything that I want at any time, and I have and used it all around, and they arranged to have the cylinders copied.
Fantastic.
And I think the man in California didn't work on it full time, but he worked on it for 2 years for 23 cylinders. And then we were able for the first time to play some at the film festival this year.
And did you listen to them all from start to finish?
I have not yet listened to all of them. I was excited to pick out ones that I could use at the film festival. And the ones I picked, we played President McKinley's inauguration march.
Okay.
And he was elected in 96 and 1900, but I don't know which of those years was this his inaugural march. Probably 1900. Then President McKinley was the first president to ever be filmed. And that film is in the Brinton collection.
Of course it is.
Wow.
And so we played the inauguration march. We played his film, riding down in a parade in Buffalo, New York. Then there was a part of the speech that he gave in Buffalo was one of the recordings, so we played that speech, which could be something that would have been given today. It talked about some of the same things. So we listened to that speech. He went inside the building after the speech, was assassinated.
Oh.
Was shot just a few minutes later. He didn't die right away, but he died a few days later. And then in the collection of sound, we also had his funeral march. So we inaugurated him, watched him, listened to him, and listened to his funeral.
It's kind of bookending a bit, but in a very coarse manner.
Yeah. Well, at least it had kind of a story. Some of the others, there's at least 4 of the recordings that I also have the Magic Lantern slides that go with them, but I didn't know we had those recordings until just before the film festival. So next year we'll be playing sound that go with a set of hand-painted Magic Lantern slides.
Well, that'll be neat. I wondered if you could not resist and would listen to everything and take it all in, or if it's more like Christmas Day or a dessert that you see.
I've listened to most of them, but
okay. There's a few not. We're gonna go to a break, and when we come back, how the collection exists is curious. And Frank in Indiana, Brinton, and some of how some of the collection came to be, I think would be a great place to pick up after the break of Washington Live, powered by KCTC. Stick around and we'll pick up right where we left off.
Since 1905, Kelowna Cooperative Technology Company has helped our community stay connected with the latest advancements in clear, dependable telecommunications services. KCTC provides rural Iowans with access to high-speed fiber internet, as well as phone, television, computer repair, and cybersecurity solutions. We're also proud supporters of local organizations and area schools within the community. KCTC, keeping Kelowna connected.
For many, farmland holds more than financial value. It holds emotional value. Whether your farm has been in your family for generations or it's an investment, we recognize the importance of your relationship with your land. At Hertz Farm Management, we have been serving landowners in Iowa for over 75 years. At Hertz, we bring a personal and knowledgeable approach to helping customers manage, buy, sell, or appraise farms. We invite you to visit our Washington office and partner with someone you can trust.
Welcome back to Washington Live, powered by KCTC. I'm your host, Jaron Rosine. I'm joined by our producer, Nick Steffens, our publishers, Matt Bryant, and our guest today is Mike Zahs. Welcome back.
Good to be here.
On the quick break, we mentioned, anniversary, birthday shout-outs, local events that you can put in the chat. Mike will have a 50-year beard anniversary coming up next year.
9th of August.
9th of August.
Which is also our wedding anniversary.
That is wonderful. I mentioned, sometimes people do contests with shaving, and I knew that Mike's beard has a legacy, so probably not playing any games like that. But you mentioned something about your funeral and your casket. Would you share what you mentioned on our break?
Well, I've said that maybe I could be shaved for visitation to increase attendance, and I didn't bring it. I almost brought my casket into town today because it's going to Jones Funeral Home in preparation, and I just finished putting that together.
What material did you use in the casket?
It's wood, and I've found it in a basement. I've been cleaning out. That's where I found the Britton collection, was in a basement, and this was in a basement in Ainsworth, and then I've adapted it to be my casket. I fit, so it's okay.
Well, yes, as you should. You can customize yourself.
Yeah.
That's a way to bookend it too. That legacy is neat. I don't think it would impact attendance because I believe everyone that possibly could attend will, to honor so many of the contributions. Let's talk about those contributions. The effect that you can show the Brinton films means that Frank in Indiana had a legacy as well. Where did they get these materials from when they are the only known recordings in the known to exist? How did they come to exist with Frank in Indiana?
Frank started doing programs in the area in the 1870s, and he traveled, did projection entertainment from Texas to Minnesota. When he married Indiana Putman, she was 20 years his junior. And
20 years his junior?
20 years his junior. And I've only been able to interview a couple people that ever saw one of their shows because they quit doing shows in 1909. And I've found years ago, talked to some people, and I said, well, what did Indiana do? And they said, she mostly just stood and looked pretty. So I figured that was a trophy wife.
Did she also wander around the house naked? Is this something you used to share with me? Or,
There is
getting off
talk
track, but
that she very much prized her complexion, and she felt that a good complexion should breathe. So at home, she let her complexion breathe. And
that's how I remember it, yes.
and people who came to the house unannounced, she sometimes came to the door, sometimes not, but they could testify that she had a nice complexion and lots of it.
So that is how you find out about some of these shows and the experiences, the interview you mentioned. So would people write about it? How do you discover, for instance, what you just mentioned? She wasn't taking selfies on Snapchat or the things that happen today, yeah.
But, I've interviewed her mailman.
Okay.
And he died a couple years ago. He was 102. And he said if she had a letter that she had to sign for, and she got a lot of such mail, he would go home, call her, and say he had a letter, and then she would come to the door and be
just a
acceptable.
Little bit of notice, text first, yeah.
But I knew her doctor was also my doctor, and he said when he would stop at the house, she didn't always dress.
Again, I got a little distracted. That tends to happen. Of course, the home that we refer to is an iconic home here in Washington, just down the road from where I live on South Iowa Avenue. Would you describe the home, or how it's apartments now that are nice, but it was designed to be flat for the helicopter. There were other things about the design. What can you tell us about their home?
In the Britton collection, and like I said, there's 3 pickup loads, but they kept everything. We have the receipt and the catalog where every screw and nail in that house was ordered from. And so we could rebuild that house. And I always say this, don't ever throw anything away, because after 120 years, your grocery list is interesting. But Frank built that house around 1900 with a flat roof for his airships to land on it.
Airships, yes.
And he called them airships, and he was building flyable airships in 1890 while the Wright brothers were still in junior high in Cedar Rapids.
That's what blows my mind. We could have been first in flight had it not been for the obnoxious crowd.
When we showed Saving Brenton in North Carolina, and I usually got to talk with a showing, and their license plate says first in flight. And I said, you are second in flight, because the Wright brothers were from Iowa originally, and their father was a minister, and they were stationed in Cedar Rapids for a while, and they did their first attempts at flight there, not with people on board, but they were flying little helicopter things. So I said, you are second in flight, and nobody disagreed with me.
That is kind of them. You mentioned being able to rebuild the house, and I think that's how we know about the success of the airships, because those plans and specs exist and have been examined for what would happen if they were rebuilt. Is that correct?
And I have the original drawings of the airships.
Yeah.
And we have made some of, if you go to the lobby of the Hills Bank, there is a model of one of the airships there. And much, much more complicated than anything that the Wright brothers did. And he was building airships that he thought would carry 15 people.
Oh, wow.
And had engines and such. And it's a long, long story about his success and not success, but he was building airships for over 20 years, and very complicated ones. And he would have models that he would fly in the Opera House before he did a show, say at the Graham Opera House or other opera houses. He would have airship models that he would fly. And there's in his writings, and I don't know how accurate his writings always are, because he was a great promoter, which and accuracy are not always the same. Something like politics.
Yeah, I was going to say, my mind is wandering to several places.
But there was supposedly times when he actually gave people rides on tethered airships.
Okay. It's so fun to be fascinated by this again. I realize you think about it all the time. I haven't thought about it in just a little while, and it's great to kind of reignite that passion for people that want to learn more. What's your next event or show? Or Hills Bank, of course, has things all the time. You have an annual film festival in Ainsworth.
The last Friday and Saturday of July every year. The Hills Bank has a major display up of mine that comes down Friday, and it is over 70 signed pieces by Grant Wood.
Grant Wood collection.
And that comes down Friday. But the Hills Bank's been very supportive of the whole projects, the movie, and they've hired people to make models of the airships and things. And so there's one on display at the bank now, and there's others that will probably come fairly soon.
Well, this is part of that great team that we spoke about that covers a lot of areas. Music is one of them. You mentioned the chamber music and the Pines being a part of the Saving Britain film with music that you didn't know what it would be, but it's perfect.
The film makers, the three guys from Iowa City, would ask me about, do you want this in the film or do you want this in the film? And from the very beginning, I said, you put in the film what you want. I want it to be your film. And they knew about film, I didn't. And they asked me about the music, and I said, you pick what you want. And they used Red Cedar Chamber Music, which I'm part of that group. And then they picked the music from the Pines. And they said they thought that I would really like the music. They did not know that I had the Pines as students, and they picked the music without knowing that. And so it was just a very special.
Yeah, serendipitous. And well, I really appreciate the conversation and taking the time to speak today on Washington Live. It sounds like if you'd like to see something of Mike Zahs' right now, you could see the Grant Wood collection until Friday at the Hills Bank here in Washington. And there are many things to look forward to throughout the year. But right now, you could go see the Grant Wood collection and the 70 signed pieces. It seems so sophomoric now to play this after talking about much more important things, but we have asked Mike to stay for the birthday game. Birthday shout-outs, do we have any in the chat that we need to do today? All right, if you have a birthday shout-out, you can put it in the chat. You can also email washialive@gmail.com, birthday, anniversary, local events, whatever you'd like us to shout out. We would be happy to do that. What do we have for celebrity birthdays? So the rules of the game, if we are within 3 years, we get a point. If you land right on, you get 2 points. And if you win, as I've said, you just win. But we also have a trinket. What do we have today? And then we'll close out her show.
I'd say the first celebrity birthday is Jennifer Lawrence, known for the Hunger Game movies.
That's right. You probably don't watch a lot of television. You watch things that are a little older than the current.
Right.
She's funny, though. She does a nice job. I'll go first then, and I'm going to guess 35. We don't think she's watching. She won't be.
Okay. I'll say 41.
She is 32.
Ooh.
I snag 1 point.
Snag 1 point, just barely.
Celebrities do age very well, so
Well, they have a lot of help.
Now we have Joe Jonas, which part of a boy band when I was a kid. So this is
I forget that Nick is so young because he also has a glorious facial hair that he's able to grow.
I did trim it today. It was not as good as yours.
So
but
Joe Jonas, would you like to guess first?
45.
45. I will go 42.
he's actually only 33. So
all of this experience, we're giving them a lot more credit.
Yeah.
Next up, we have Ben Affleck. His younger brother was just the other day.
Casey does a nice job. Ben is remarried to Jennifer Lopez. Yeah, they. Breaking news: they were together. They were not together. They're together again. It's a true love story.
So now you're caught up.
There's so many things you can talk about. I guess I can talk about pop culture.
He played Batman. I'm trying to think what else.
So I will guess 45.
48.
Mike is on the board. He is 50. So
50.
going
So
in.
point and point. We might tie it up. Anthony Anderson, I see, is our last celebrity birthday.
Yes,
Thanks for indulging. What do we have?
I gotta go all the way over to Anthony Anderson. In the TV series Blackish,
I like how that looks like cashmere. And
It's a great. It looks like a great sweater. I'm trying to think what else he is in recently. Law and Order.
And he's a good writer. He does
Yes.
a nice job.
Yes, Law and Order is
that
probably what a
comedy
lot of
show.
people think of.
So I often compare to mine too. I'm 38. And I think he's older, so 42 would be my guess.
39.
He is actually 52.
Well,
So we have a tie of 1-1. I did not have a tiebreaker prepared.
I enjoy leaving it as a tie because I don't
Yes.
like winning, but I don't like losing either. It puts me in a real dilemma.
Tying is good.
Tying is great. I will have to have you back, especially maybe when we get closer to the 26th anniversary or sometime if you'd be willing to come back. Would love to have you.
Well, it's been fun. And it's always great to keep track of old students.
That is me. Well, I'm honored to be the host of Washington Live, powered by KCTC. Thanks for joining. Join us on Wednesday when we have Jackie Ariola to talk about the Latino Festival that's coming up. We'll see you then. Thank you.